Welcome to the Freddie Kissoon Show. Bring it!
Let me ask you this question. I would like to ask the AG to propose legislation for what we call small claims court. There are lots of poor people, to an example you just gave, that they have issues with others and sometimes with large firms, but the lawyer fee is greater than the fee you're claiming.
It is
It is their right. Yes.
A right, the right that someone has. All of our rights exist in context.
What is the context of a second medical opinion?
Because you're disrespecting the process.
No.
Jesus, this is common sense, man.
Any situation which you seem that you're just dealing with Afro-Guyanese issues. If one, you can't bring and pull the leaders of the African community together, you're failing. And if two, you can't put forward a future, a blueprint, and a plan for African Guyanese, you're failing as well.
Hi there. Pleasant Friday evening to you. All the very best for the weekend coming up. We do not have a guest. What we have missed out on because of the election is the Leonard Craig Freddie Kissoon dialogue. Over the past few months, Craig and I have sat down and have analyzed the contents of Guyanese politics. We have done that at the request of people, but then when we look at the viewership, we saw that we were making an offering to people who accepted it. And so because of the guests and the elections, we have missed out. So this is the other format we call the dialogue. Craig and I in dialogue discussing the contents of Guyana. Of course, we will have our calling on Monday. And as you know, based on the call-ins, last Monday, I mentioned Leonard Craig in my column today about what he promised our call-in audience, and so I'm going to talk about that. But before, this column in my column today is called Guyana Must End This Masquerade. Please look at it. Keep it for a couple of seconds. Guyana must end this masquerade. After I finish with that, we'll look at leadership of opposition parties that are still around. What is this masquerade about? Let me read quickly the opening paragraph. The Guyana government has indicated that the Private Sector Commission, as a civil society body, will be asked to be involved in identifying civil society's representatives on the multi-stakeholder group of the Guyana Extractive Industries Transparency Institute. It is anticipated that the GS for civil society, conspiratorial group plan to reject the PSC as part of civil society in Guyana. If the PSC is not a civil society group, I would like to see a definition of what constitutes a civil society entity. There cannot be a proper definition of civil society if entities like the Catholic Church, the Trade Union Congress are included under the rubric of civil society, but not the Private Sector Commission. Now, what I am entering in October this month, I'm entering my 37 years as a columnist. I'm an old man compared to Craig. And one of the things I have argued for those 37 years and the 57 years I've been in social activism is that people who criticize the exercise of power, you wonder if they get in, if they would not do the same or do worse. Civil society. Every time you hear about civil society, three names crop up. The past 5 years, the past 10 years, the past 15 years. A Portuguese woman from the Vera family named Vanda Raznik, and Mr. Mike McCormack. Mr. Mike McCormack and Mr. Ms. Van der Raslik, are the civil society representative on the Guyana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. If any embassy, if anything happens in Guyana and civil society has to be there, it's Mr. Mike McCormack, it's Ms. Van der Raslik. So, the BBC did a program on Guyana oil industry, and Ms. Raslik appeared as the interviewee, and on the strip on the television says a civil society activist. I was on the seawall for the Palestine rally, and Ms. Raslik was a speaker, and she was introduced as a civil society activist. Mr. McCormack and Van der Raslik appear all the time representing civil society. Which organizations they come from? Are these organizational functional? They have an executive, they meet, they have term limits. Mike McCormack has been the head of the GHRA for 46 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen to the words coming out of my mouth. 46 years he's been the president of the Guyana Human Rights Association, and then there's a man named Lincoln Lewis. Guyana Trade Union Congress, part of civil society. Everything in the world, in Guyana and the Caribbean, where Guyana has to send some civil society representative, it's Lincoln Lewis. So there's nobody else in the TUC. When a letter appears, hundreds of letters have appeared the past 10 years, commenting on things in Guyana by the Trade Union Congress, signed Lincoln Lewis. Now these are the people that talk about lack of transparency in the government. Every day the government not transparent, and they themselves are not transparent. And let me see what I said here about Leonard Craig in my column today about human rights work in Guyana. Good. Take the GRA. What role does the GRA play in Guyana? I have met dozens of people periodically that have problems with the NIS, and none of them knows about the GHRA and what work it does. None of them has given any thought to the GRA intervening with NIS to help them. Leonard Craig, the Chronicle columnist, is currently working with a number of pensioners to assist them with their NIS complaints. No one complains to the GHRA. The only time Guyanese hear about the GHRA is when the Starbucks News carries its press releases on its front page. Every Guyanese with democratic instinct need to monitor in the coming weeks the process of selecting civil society representative on the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. It cannot be McCormack this time. It cannot be Van der Raslik this time. Why is the Private Sector Commission not a civil society body? Anybody who says it's not is talking nonsense. It is. It is a quintessential civil society body. Now, that is my opening salvo, and then I want to look at David Patterson as acting head of the Alliance for Change, Norton confirmed as continuing as the PNC leader, and go through some of these things, and you ask yourself, what examples are these people? What would they have done if they got into government? Leonard Craig.
Good evening, viewers, again. Just a little point on what you spoke of just now. There is a loose definition for civil society, and there is a tight academic definition. When you study social science, and there is the tight academic definition that comes out of the capitalist school, will say that the private sector is not civil society. And if it comes out of a more conservative school, or a more liberal school, then it will be civil society. And let me explain. So the economy, from a capitalist perspective, essentially has three segments or three sectors. And they're saying that the private sector has a profit motive. And because they are so instinctive on profits and making profits, then they cannot be considered civil society. Civil society do not make profits, do not look for profits, and so on. And that is a strict definition depending on which school you think. There are other schools which define two basic sectors, government and civil society, and that is in the social setting. So one view is more of a social outlook, and the social sector just have government versus civil society. And from a capitalist economic sector, then they set it up in three because they got three separate economic function. The social definition will fit what Freddie is saying, that socially speaking, in our social economy and our social relations, the private sector commission is a full civil society body, just as trade unions are, just as organizations like any human rights organization, just as youth organizations would be, and so on and so forth and so forth. So I just bring in clarity to that, more or less just academic discussion, more or less. I am one big on term limits, and I do not support lifelong tenure in any organization of any type, except you have a family business that you build on your own and in your family, and you want to lead it for the rest of your life, so be it. But in other entities, I do not believe in lifelong tenure, as is happening in the GHRA, as is happening in
Public
trade
Service
union.
Public Service Union.
Public Service Union.
Patrick Yard is 37
since I'm a little child,
President of the Public Service
I hearing about Patrick Yard. Since I'm a little child, I hearing Lincoln Lewis is the head of
33 years.
And so on. I believe there are other Guyanese who can serve and serve well. If they're concerned about if Lincoln Lewis move, if the ideology will move as well. If these people have not done a good job in training people, they're going to always have that worry. If you have not done a good job at molding people for leadership and bringing people along with you, sharing your ideology and transferring knowledge and ways and means and things like that, then you have got to stay on because you believe that you're the only person who could do it, and you perpetually believe that. And that is a failed model. That is failed leadership. I don't concern what people say. You want to run something for the rest of your life, you want to be a lifelong leader, you go and start a business and run the business and stay with it forever. But when you're part of civil society organizations, let civil society in the broadest form have a chance to lead. And that would be my comment on that.
But I'd like to add a footnote to that. When you look at our population, it's one of the youngest. I don't know if it's the youngest. It's one of the youngest in the world. I mean, when you think that 50% is between 16 and 18, and then 70% stops at 48. 70% is from baby to 48. You're talking about a young population. Now, let's say Patrick Yard is 36 years. Let's say 16 years ago, somebody was at 40. If Patrick Yard had given way to them, they would have been 40-something years serving as head of the Public Service Union. The fact that he's still there, that person who's 40 years is now in his 50s. How you going to ask that man who's going on to his 60s now to take over? You need a vibrant 35, 45-year-old person. Lincoln Lewis is in his early 80s. Lincoln Lewis is 34 years head of the TUC General Secretary. If somebody was 40 years and Lewis had given them, they would have ended up running the TUC as young as in their 40s. Now, you know how old is that person at 40, 15 years ago? They're now 55. They're now going on to their 60s. So, Lewis and Patrick Yard and Mike McCormack, you know the vibrant young people we have in this country. Now, Lewis and Patrick Yard have stifled young people from learning and trade unionism and being leader of trade unionism. Now, take for example Mike McCormack. You know how many good young, humanistic, democratically instinctive young people we have. This is not the Indian versus black generation of the 70s and 60s. A lot of, there's serious multiracial mingling in this country. This UG takes in 6,000 people a year. Look at the lawyers. All of them are in their 30s. McCormack has stifled a lawyer in his 30s, a doctor in his 30s, from being a human rights leader. The man is still there after being elected in 1979. I remember good. In 1979, he was leaving Guyana to study. How can these things, how can society listen to Lincoln Lewis, listen to Mike McCormack? And now Mike McCormack, in his 80s, is presently the civil society representative on the Guyana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. What about young economists like Leonard Craig? What about those young economists, those young accountants, those young environmentalists that graduate from UG? Give them a chance to experience the world. This masquerade has to come to an end. It has to. I am going to now move on to David Patterson and Aubrey Norton and then hand over.
Yeah, just before you go, for young people, probably below 50 and so on, I would encourage people. I am not going to, for me personally, not going to slip into civil society thing. I like politics and I prefer to be associated with political parties. But if young people are watching, I think it's about time that parallel organizations be formed. If Mr. McCormack and others want to hold on to that as their birthright, so be it. Let that be. Young people should start forming parallel organizations, human rights, something of Guyana. If the Human Rights Association don't want to open up. And I think there's already a parallel organization to TUC, FITUG, I think.
Yeah, FITUG, yeah. Right?
So we should probably try to grow that organization a little more so that...
Well, that's big. That's bigger than the TUC.
Right, right. Come to think about it, yes.
Gawu,
the number of
Nazi,
unions.
Yeah.
And not only the number of unions, the size unions, of the unions. Yeah. Right. So FITUG should be already larger. So leave these unions and so on into irrelevance if people just want to hold on and what have you. And young people should start chartering their own course. And I'm going to say this further, that I would be happy to participate with any person watching, and I'll be happy to search the globe for resources to help start such an organization. So if they got a couple of young people, link up with your friends and y'all get going.
And form a
get
human
going.
rights body.
Yeah, get going. Go ahead.
No, but before I go on to the eligibility of David Patterson to be the acting leader of the AFC, do you know Mike McCormack has lived through President Burnham, Cheddy Jagon, Janet Jagon, and Hart? The four of them are dead. He has lived through Sam Hines.
Granger.
Sam Hines.
Jack
Dio, Ramatar, Granger, and Ali. No one has been able to get that experience of being a human rights person under any of those presidents. Except Mike McCormack.
And not only that, what is even worse, Freddie, is that even if you're a leader and you hold this leadership position, I have never seen anybody else in the organization, if there is anybody else.
McCormack.
Exactly. I've never seen anybody else in the organization represent the organization.
Look,
and that's the difficulty I have.
Everywhere you turn, all those embassies, when they invite civil society people, it's McCormack and Van der Rasdik. Everybody, I was at the picket line on Friday for the Palestine, it's Van der Rasdik. So you have young people who are aggrieved at what's going on in Palestine. Why don't they give these people a chance? So it's not, they can stay in there. Like McCormack could stay there, Lewis could stay there, but push people in front to get an experience.
That's the issue I have, the further issue I have. All right, so let's assume you have grown a popularity, this, that, what have you, and you're the leader. Get other people, enlarge the territory, enlarge a pool of leaders that you could draw from every day. If you got an ideology and you can't spread and communicate that ideology to people and make people into another version of you, as they just call it in young people call it a mini-me. If you can't make that as a leader after how many decades, you failed. It's clear that you failed.
Okay, I want to say something now that I hope doesn't affect my friendship, my long friendship with Michael Carrington, the vice chairman of the AFC. I'm saying something that without him knowing, but I think Carrington is a good activist, a good politician, and he will understand. The point I'm about to make is that so many, Craig is a little boy to me, so many of us who want to change this country, who want this country to be better and people to place their faith in them, they are no different from the people in power they criticize. No different. You know what? In a conversation with Michael Carrington, he said something to me. I turned over this thing in my mind, and the days after, I remarked it to Leonard Clegg. He is the third in charge of the AFC. He said right here, it's the leader, first, chairman is deputy leader, then vice chairman is third, and then the fourth is the general secretary. So I was talking with him, and the AFC under Nigel You's leadership had brought in an Amerindian activist named Laura George. And I talking to Carrington, and Carrington said to me, now, I don't think I can get Carrington in trouble. Anybody tell Carrington anything, he will confront them, and he will be no nonsense with them. So I said to Carrington, Laura George is with the FC. He said, what, the employer was a consultant or she is a full-time employee? He did not know. The third in charge of the party did not know that a lady named Laura George, what her status was. In democratic organizations, Laura George's name comes on the table with the executive sitting down, and the leader or the treasurer or someone says, I think we should employ Laura George full-time, or she should be a consultant. And the person that must be present there is the inner core of the leadership. The leader, deputy leader, third in charge, fourth in charge, the treasurer.
About most parties, about 5 people at least, yeah.
Michael Carrington asked me, oh, it's in the press? What they got charged? They employ her full time, or she's a consultant. It means if those people got into power in the AFC, they would have run the country without democratic consultation with the people of Guyana. You need to reorganize everybody in the AFC. They need to organize. If you are going to survive, man, this is common sense. You're going to put a person who been there from the beginning, failed, and you're going to put him to act as leader? Do you know in 2017, at the height of the AFC power in Guyana, the AFC had the Congress in Vredenhoop as the West Demerara Secondary School. And a second-tier leader in the AFC challenged one of the founders of the AFC for the position of General Secretary. And one beat him because they didn't have any confidence in David Patterson. His name is Marlon Williams. He challenged David Patterson, a founding member, a minister of government. And the delegates voted for Marlon Williams. And then in 2020, the AFC lost the elections. Then in 2025, the AFC didn't get a seat. Oh man. It's not common sense. You's gone. You let Trotman and David Patterson take a back seat, and so they can inform and groom the new leaders and tell them, show them some mistakes they should make, some directions they shouldn't go in or they should go in. But the acting leader is David Patterson. I'm going to come to Norton and the devastation, but before I do that, Shama Solomon got Solomon a Lindoner icon, got his iconic status obliterated by Win. Did not win any polling division of all the polling divisions in Linden. Win 134, PPP 17. And that man said in the interview, we haven't been damaged. Region 10 hasn't, the PNC, APNU hasn't been damaged in Region 10. These are the leaders that wanted us to vote for them to put, no, they can't come. They are a trillion miles away from a man named Muhammad Orphan Ali. Craig.
A quick comment on the Patterson thing. I think maybe, you see, for me, I think in our politics and in every party got some work to do with respect to that. But it is clear that a lot of discussion happening in the PPP, and that is not happening in the other parties. So if Nigel Hughes as the leader was going to leave the party, in my opinion, he should have called at least his top 5 and say to them,
he
here,
didn't
look,
do that, right?
I am going to think, and what's the way forward we're going to do in the interim until another leader is selected or so on. He just dropped a bomb on them, and then they scamper in to go and now ask him, man, stay on until we find another leader or what. It means then that there's no leadership discussion happening inside of the party. And I warned Trotman, if he watches this program, he could bear witness that several times between 2015 and 2020, I approached him and I spoke to him about that the AFC has got to have more discussion, has got to do things more together. You know that when the AFC was in power during 2015 to 2020, there was not even one initiative that came out of Center for Change that the people in Center for Change sit down and say, here,
views with Center for Change.
Center for Change is the head office for Alliance for Change. I'm saying this as a matter of fact, without fear of even contradiction, successful or not. There wasn't one policy that came from the collective at Center for Change that was put forward and AFC ministers were asked to enforce or to carry out. Not even one. And I was after them over and over and over that you got to run the part, at least part of what the government do, got to run out of Center for Change. And again, I'm reminding viewers that one of the reasons why the PPP is successful and will continue to be successful for a long time to come is that much of the government policies that you see come from the collective. It comes from Freedom House, which is the right place. You got to germinate ideas, and the ministers then pick up on those ideas and then go back and implement it, of course, with their own flair and their own flavor. But the kernel of what you do has got to come from a political office. It's only political parties win government. All this pretense that people normally have that why things that the government do got to be political, because it's a political organization. And that is what one of the things that AFC failed to do. So what happened? You had David Patterson doing his own thing, and David Patterson never came back to the executive of the AFC and say, I got these 10 policies, blah, blah, this is where it's going to go, this is where it's going to go, where does the executive want me to go with this, and all of that. That didn't come from Trotman, that didn't come from Ranjitan, and what have you. Sometimes when there is something blowing up in the media, maybe then some discussion will happen and then they will talk about strategy. But once that died down, everybody gone again. And the Granger cabinet had too many star boys and girls. And because everybody was an entity on his or her own, then what ended up happening? They end up using administration to supersede politics. So politics is a by the way thing that happens. And they become reactive.
They got into power not through politics.
Yeah.
If there's a God, he send them down.
Right.
Do you know what Rupert Tupnowine said? This is, in my own way, I try to expose these people so they can be a body of knowledge and go into Guyanese history. It wasn't me. It was a man in the WPA executive who was a founder of the WPA named Takuma Ogunse that wrote a letter in the Starbook News when Ogunse and Ogun were part of the APNU, AFC government representing WPA. Clive Thomas said at an executive meeting of the WPA, I cannot discuss government business with Takuma Ogunse wrote that. I remember, I think you were in China. Somebody told me I'm going to call their name. Michael Carrington told me. He raised something at the management committee meeting that met every week at AFC and was told we can't discuss government business at the management committee meeting of the AFC. What I find dangerous, shocking, degenerate, malignant, cancerous is you talk to these people the past 5 years, They want the PPP government out and they want to replace them. And it so happened, I'm not a believer, but if you believe in God, God said, no, you're not going in there in September 2025. And we're so lucky that we didn't have them on September the 2nd, 2025. Take Aubrey Norton. Elson Law sat on this chair and said, Mr. Norton selected the 12 parliamentarians. So Norton probably went to Bam Bam Ali and sat down alone, or sat down on his veranda and said, Shama Solomon, Putty. You looking at the list. Jaretta Finance, that Jaretta stay there. Get Jaretta go there. And that man, Aubrey Norton, wanted to be the president of Guyana.
Yeah, and in the midst, what is worse is that this happened in the midst of a crisis that the party is facing. And I don't know, if there isn't any other time that you have a discursive approach, you call in people and you ask their opinion and sit down and talk with people, it would have been this time. Maybe you might have, there's 12 people you got to name. Maybe you might have 4 or even 5 that you dead set on and you want, and it's non-negotiable. And then discuss the other 7 or something, you know what I'm saying?
I am telling you, Craig, I don't think that happened elsewhere. I think Macron, I think Trump, they got the close in it, and they say, who you think for defense? This guy was a former general.
Right.
And another guy would say, but when in Afghanistan, he had problems. You know?
And then sometimes Trump would if you understand how Trump move, he sit down with people, he take advice from many others, but sometimes he is big-headed about it. He breaks down the whole thing and say, you gotta have at least a little of both.
Oh, you ever see you young, you ever see Jagan and Bonham operate? Them men stay whole night, going into morning.
Yeah.
And Rohi and them around the table, Bonham and telling me reading. And then this thing lasting for hours, what to do, how to respond. And tell you, Bonham and Jagan, that man was a workhorse. 2 o'clock in the morning, and Rohi and Navin Chandrapal said, no. Rohi used to oppose Chedi. Norton sat down at Bamba Mali alone at his table and chose 12.
Because if you got an inner group of 5, I think that's the number Elson Lowe called, that he referred to as the executive, which is smaller than the executive committee. If that 5 wasn't involved, I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand it.
Let me ask you, if Carrington didn't know that the AFC employed Lara George, if the PNC didn't know that Norton selected his parliamentarians, what would happen to Guyana if those people had that power that the president of Guyana got?
Yeah.
You don't understand what would happen? The Minister of Agriculture would wake up one day and here we get removed. Not the call and tell you, look, man, I got Michael. I think look. Shift over to tourism, man. You get along well with foreigners. All the guy would do is wake up in the morning, see he's no longer agriculture minister. That is what people.
Well, that's what happened to German Figueroa.
He was moved
based on what we saw in the press. I don't know.
He was moved. The shadow.
So the thing is this: is that when you don't, even if there are times in the life of a political party when you have a good, astute leader and so on, and the party sometimes voluntarily defer to that person. And when times are good, you defer and you work your way around. But when you're in a crisis, you've got to withdraw that right. That
you call it a crisis. I think semantically speaking, what happened to the PNC wasn't a crisis, was a disaster or an earthquake. I mean, it cannot, a mild word like crisis. I mean, these guys don't have a regional council of the 10 regions in Guyana. These guys from 31 seats in parliament have 12. And you would think men scrambling in the room and saying, we got to get this party to survive. We got to do something now. This is that time. Let me die in here. And Norton said, I will groom the young leadership. And Terence Campbell saying, it's, Norton will work. And in the same breath, Terence Campbell said, we in for the long haul. Let me tell you something. I campaigning in Babujan in Port Morant. Campbell better be careful. I am the least person that would advocate, least in the entire world that would advocate violence after all that has happened to me, the violence that has been inflicted to me. But he got to be careful that they don't throw a Ganda egg pani when he go in Port Morant. People get pelted with Ganda egg is innocent thing in all over the world. You can go in Babujan PPP stronghold and tell them your leader is Aubrey Norton. But I want to switch off I want to stay on this topic, this team, and go on to a different shape. Amanza Walton-Desir. Now, there is a big boss up in Forward Guyana with Darwin Bess and Amanza Walton-Desir. I don't know what agreement they have made. But what I would like to hear as an analyst and as a public intellectual, I want to hear Amanza Walton's response to Darwin Bess. She said someone threatened her from Bess party. Bess said no one threatened her. But Bess' point is, we agree to divide the presence in parliament. I don't know if that is true. I don't know what Bess is saying is true. What I'd like to hear from Amanza Walton-Desir, when they merge, these three parties merge, Amanza Walton-Desir, Nigel London, and Darwin Bess, was there an agreement similar to the Asha Kissoon? I hope she doesn't get anything from this government, please. Was there an agreement that they divide the presence in parliament? Now, I've heard Walton-Desir said she was threatened. I've heard she said disrespect to women, etc. I read all the time and I want to hear from Amanza Walton-Desir. Was there any agreement between Nigel London, herself, and Darwin Bess to share the three of them presence in parliament? I just want to know.
This is what I heard. Nigel London had a live in which he said that there was no written agreement.
And
he said, verbal agreement. Right. And he said that the agreement they had was up to the election, and that they were supposed to decide when the elections are over, how do they go forward from there. So that is why the agreement did not have any specifics with what happened with the seat, what happened with parliament, what happened with government.
And that's coming from London.
That's coming from London, right? And he said, look, we agree that we will joint budget, joint campaign, joint everything, but that is up to election day or up to election results. When election results are out, we convene and then we decide what's the way forward. Then this guy, Francis Michael Bailey, I think you know him. We protest with him.
Yeah, I know him. He lived in my street.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And he said he agreed with London by saying that indeed there was no written agreement. However, he departed by saying that they had a verbal agreement that any seat they got to split it evenly, And if it is not sufficient to give 1, 2, 3, then there must be a equal rotation. And because Darwin Best cannot go to Parliament, or he was not on the list because he has dual citizenship, he was the next person up, and he was looking forward to be in Parliament. Then I saw a statement from Amanza, I think, or from the party, but signed by Amanza, something to that effect, stating that there was what you call a closeout meeting where these things were supposed to discuss, including the finances and all of that. And VPAC decided not to show up. And that was before all this blow up happened in public.
Oh, that's before any disagreement or anything.
Right. Or that was when the disagreement started brewing, but privately. And VPAC decided not to show up, but send a letter asking 71 plus questions to be clarified before they come at any closeout meeting. So that is my understanding of what is happening. So in the absence of VPAC, the meeting happened and they went ahead and decided on a 3-year, 2-year split. And then that was then communicated to Darwin Best, and he did not agree. And then it became public.
Okay, well, that 3-year, that 3-2 excluded him. 3 for Walton-Desir,
and 2 for Nigel.
Right, so no. Okay. The formalist, those who believe in formalism can attack that by saying, if he didn't come, it's 3 pillars the organization rests on. And if one pillar is missing, the 2 cannot make a decision so fundamental as to parliamentary representation. Now, he chose not to go. Of course, you say you get that from Walton-Desir.
Yeah, I will just summarize what I see
We
in
haven't
the public space.
We don't know if best account differs. But if that is so, on something as fundamental as presence in Parliament, they would have had to postpone the meeting, reach out to Best. I don't think I would agree that he didn't come and you make such a quintessential decision that determines his political future. In doing that, they determine the man's political future.
Yeah, for me, and I keep saying all the time, that I prefer our politics take
to be more cordial and more friendly.
More cordial, more friendly, more, you know. So what I understand is that Best and VPAC had shown some amount of discontent by sending the letter not coming to the meeting. And as soon as you recognize discontent, even if you as the leader of the group don't do it yourself, I believe in having emissaries. There must be somebody in the group who is conversant with Darwin Best and could call Best and say, Best, let me sit down, man. Amanza is not like what you think she is, man. There must be something we could talk about.
But if he send a letter, that letter has to be responded to. Has Amanza
I don't know if it was responded to.
But that's insulting.
But all I am saying is that I am one who prefers to see we have politics at all levels in Guyana that really dive deep into discussion before we go, you know, and things like that. And I always tell people, and I'm going to repeat this here again. When I left the AFC, I didn't blindside anybody, you know. I called both founders, and I'm going to say Raphael Trotman and Kemraj Ramjatan. I even had a discussion with David Patterson, not a long discussion, but a short one, right? And I told Ramjatan and Trotman, hey, I'm leaving, so. And one of the things that the straw that broke the camel back for me, when I communicated to them that I wanted to leave and say, man, do you have a vision of a future role, you know, I would play, this is, you know, y'all know my strong points and so on and so on. They just behave cavalier. And for me, your party just lost government, your thing, and all of that. And you cannot articulate a vision to me as leader and founder to save and rescue and keep your party. You can articulate a vision to me. To me, that was the end of the road for me. But I didn't blindside anybody because I believe in discussion and I practice that every day.
Well, I think the Guyanese people would like to hear from Bess and Walton-Desir. The question from Bess is he satisfied? Is he correct that there was a verbal agreement vis-a-vis Bailey that they would share parliament? We need to hear from Walton-Desir. She's a lawyer. Whether she thought it was proper on such a fundamental, I think fundamental is the wrong word, is a too light word, to make such a decision on the future of Darwin Bess. If he goes into parliament, it means something for his politics. He rubs shoulders with the Barajak Dios, the Ashley Singhs. He get to know them. Parliament is a serious forum. Let me tell you something. In every parliament, both opposition and ruling party are enriched philosophically.
But
they get to know each other.
Can't go to parliament. I think the next person up would have been
right. But he wants somebody he wants somebody from his
Bailey even said in that live that I saw in its entirety that even if they give him 1 year out of the 2 that London get, because he said he spoke with London and London seemed to want or seem to be prepared to give 1 year and take 1 year and allow Amanza to have 3, and then that fell through. But I think he was signaling that even that 1 year, he was prepared to work.
That has not.
No, I don't think it was discussed. He was just verbally exercising that. Verbally in his rant, I would want to call that he had.
If they don't have a joinder agreement, so which means if they put their quarrels aside and they go for the 3-1-1, what happens if somebody does an Asha Kissoon?
Well, for me here, this is what I would say. What these things do, the agreement that TNM and Anog had, then you hear this thing happening with Mohammed and Anog, and then now
it happened with Anog. They didn't give France a seat.
VPAC and Forward Guyana.
You have to have a legal written.
To me, not even just legal written. To me, when small parties come together, because you're gonna always have this problem, because small parties cannot win enough seats to share out in equal proportion. And for me, I think small parties should start agreeing around issues for Guyana and what have you, and do some sort of scientific polling or something and determine which of the small parties got the greatest strength. Because if it's not a joinder, you can't know individual strength. If it's a joinder, it's clear. If it's not a joinder, it's not clear. But you do some sort of poll and determine which of the party has greater individual strength, and agree that this party is gonna go forward, or if not the party, which leader has a greater public profile. In this case, it was clearly Amanza. Let Amanza go ahead and guarantee that when she is in parliament, she would represent these issues and come back to us, and we have monthly meetings discussing.
So you were saying that they went in the trenches together, they joined into a coalition, and they mustn't get a share in parliament?
Because if Amanza, let's assume they won, right? And Amanza become president, you're going to rotate the presidency?
That's a terrible analogy.
No, that's
a terrible analogy in the fact that if she won, she's entitled to the presidency. In this case, they won a seat in a 3-man operation.
But isn't it similar
It
if
can be
she
similar.
goes ahead in parliament and represents the group, and the group ensure its voice is heard through her?
I hear your argument, but you have to explain why. You have to explain for me the logics inside your theory as to why they wouldn't want to share the parliamentary.
No. Not that anything is wrong with sharing, but it's clear that of recent vintage in this country, going back 10 years now, or probably even before, that parties, small parties, when they acquire seats or a seat or whatever,
Kissoon.
we got 3 examples on the table.
Jesus, Amanza Kissoon, Walton-Desir now with Darwin Best, and look what that guy did to
Anog.
The man merged his party with him. He won 16 seats.
Yeah.
There's an agreement that if they get 6 seats, Anog will get 2.
So
and if
based on that, that
this
is what
guy,
I'm saying.
Azuddin Mohammed, can somebody deport him, please?
It's easier, in my opinion, to represent values, ideas, and policies. And then as trust is built, we could do the other things.
But then,
because clearly there is no...
But the president had started a week in office, and look what the opposition doing. They're fighting among themselves. They're fighting for parks. I mean, the worst is Azuddin Mohammed. He got 16 seats, and he gave 1 to Anog. Before he came on the scene, people knew about Anog. It had some big names with it. Anog leader told me they have a written agreement.
Yeah,
I don't understand why they haven't taken him to court.
Anog leader needs to put the thing, even if they don't go to civil court, they should put the thing at least in the court of public opinion.
Yeah. I asked him to do that.
And if they don't want to release it, leak it something.
I spoke to him this morning.
If you release it under your own hand, it might incur certain, I don't know what, but then leak it.
Do it. I told him this morning.
It should be in the public domain so that this thing be adjudicated in the public
he said
court.
there is. I spoke to him this morning.
But, and I told him, remember, he was on one of our program at GCC. And I told him on that program that is one of the biggest mistakes he made by agreeing to a secret agreement when you have made agreement and he say in due time it will be released. And now he got conned and still he don't want to release it. So, sometimes people got to live with some of the decisions they make.
I spoke to him this morning, and I told him he need to come on the program and talk about that. I think he's living in a dream that is receding. He still thinks that there's some hope for Anog, and that Win may not survive. I don't think Win is going to survive. I don't think Azaruddin is material at all for politics, and but he's dreaming.
I don't share that view because do you remember there's a guy named Trump? When Trump acceded to office, people think it won't last long.
No, let me stop you there. Before Trump became the president, he was a successful real estate billionaire.
No, it's the same
ran
thing.
A TV program.
Same thing with Mohammed.
And the man...
There's a nexus?
I don't think Mohammed could spell Manhattan.
No. Anyway, the point I'm making, though, there are lots of similarities. When Trump acceded to office, I don't think he went there for the seriousness of it, just to demonstrate that he could win. And so everybody, who don't know, Trump was once a Democrat, and the Democrat didn't give him space to run. And so it was a revenge kind of thing.
There's too many dissimilarities between
but what Trump had, though, is there is a Republican Party machinery behind him.
And with former generals,
Yeah.
former military officers, lawyers
Yeah.
in the Republican Party, legislators of 15,
Yeah,
10
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
he had that to fall back on. I don't know if who Azudin has to fall back on, Doggy or
No, but
Doggy?
there's another thing not seriously discussed in our politics with respect to Azudin. Azudin piggyback on a large part of the AFC machinery. And I'm telling you seriously, Azudin piggyback on a large part of the AFC machinery. AFC machinery was literally split down the middle. And I'm talking about groups, party groups. Almost in their entirety, in some cases, went over to win from the AFC.
Well, he devastated both Wind and the PNC, and they're silly enough not to start reshaping themselves. But we got operators say we have to go. We will definitely see you on Monday when is the call-in. Last Monday, there was some serious calling about people's need to be happy with what the state has to give them. A lot of calls about the NIS. We will see you on Monday evening. Please call in and let us know what are your complaints and your problems. Don't ever think, you can't be that stupid. If you are going to have a good existence, if things are going to be done for you by your country, you have to tell your country what is wrong. President Ali and his ministers are very, very busy people who don't have time to scratch their head. They wouldn't know that a lady at NIS have been giving you the push along for the past month. They wouldn't know that a PPP official in the regional office is showing his weight around. They wouldn't know that. They know that when you expose it. So please come Monday evening, pick up the phone and call us and tell us what is wrong. Even though you're a PPP supporter, I stood on this platform for 3 years and supported President Ali every day in the Chronicle. And I would say that I think the toll on the bridges should have gone into a fund to help and put into disability into the disability fund. I think there should be a substantial increase in senior citizen pension. It doesn't mean you're criticizing the government. I think the Georgetown Hospital is doing wonderful. It's probably the best public hospital, one of the best public hospitals in the world. I can tell you I benefited from them. I go to the Georgetown Public Hospital. So don't feel you're criticizing the government by calling in Monday evening and saying what's wrong. It will help you. On behalf of Leonard Craig and our operators, please have a very pleasant weekend. We're going to have a show on Monday and guests for next week. Enjoy your weekend and have a very, very, very beautiful existence to come if we don't hear from you on Monday. On behalf of